It's me, Ellie Kruk, the host of the Illegal Trans Woman Welcome Pack to the show. Happy Pride to all of you. I could say that for the whole month of June. I am just incredibly thrilled. And I'm welcoming you back to this show where we advocate, without any hesitation, for transgender folks and others who are gender variant. That is what we do. That is what I do. And today's show will be something that I have not done for a while. It's going to be an Ellie's Talking Head show. So that means I don't have a guest. It means I'm going to talk. It's not going to be, it'll be messy because I'll be talking. We won't finish a particular story before we have to take a break. Don't worry. I'm a professional. It'll all work out just all right, okay? And I'll be covering a number of different issues, okay? Many that are not very good at all for the trans community, okay? And you know what? It's about time for a change-up because, just for this one show, because there is so much coming at this community. Just my community, your community, the community that you're an ally of, okay? And those who are intolerant with power, okay? We're talking the federal government. Those who are intolerant with power have gotten far more sophisticated. They've become more nuanced in how they're coming after trans folks and non-binary folks and gender variant folks and even intersex folks. They become far more nuanced about it. And we always knew this, but they become far more evil about it as well. So, got a lot here. Let's talk about first item. Okay, there is a new proposed massive federal rule issued by the Office of Management and Budget, the OMB. Now, I briefly talked about this, I think, last week at Golden Valley Pride. I'm really diving into it right now. So the OMB, and you may remember, you may recall, you may know that Russell Vought, V-O-U-G-H-T, is the head of OMB. Russell Vought is also the architect of Project 2025. So he put Project 2025 together with the help of other conservative leaders, but like MAGA conservative leaders, but he is really the face and the voice of Project 2025. They put him in the OMB because he would have a lot of power, because the OMB is all about federal dollars. And this is ringing true right now because there is, as I said, a brand new proposed massive federal rule. It is 400 pages long. It is going after trans people, the trans community, in a way that we have not seen to this date. Okay? All right. Now, some of what I'm going to talk about is from Alexandra Baca. She has a blog titled Transistics. And also, I've been reading about this, but there'll be a little bit in here from Aaron Reed, the great transgender journalist that I've talked about quite a bit. First, some background. The federal government grants hundreds of millions, if not billions, of dollars every year. All right? They have these things called block grants that go out to states. They have other grants that they make. They do all of this stuff, okay? And all of those grants have to be renewed yearly by the recipients of the grants. The recipients need to certify, okay, that if they get the money from the federal government, they're going to spend it the way that they have proposed in the grant, the request for a grant, that they're going to spend the money the way that they say they will. And it's about certifying. Now, it is not automatic that you get certified, but at one time I ran a nonprofit. I know something. I'm not an expert on grant writing, but I know something, okay? You will recall as I'm doing this right now, okay? You'll recall that Project 2025 targets transgender people. I mean, they mention trans people in the second page of Project 2025, and they mention it multiple times in Project 2025. And you recall that Trump has issued a number of executive orders targeting transgender people. He did that right, right from the get-go, from the day that he was inaugurated. All of this now is coming to a head because this new proposed rule, titled Regulations for Federal Financial Assistance, um, states that its purpose is as follows. Quote, to ensure that federal awards and sub-awards are not used to fund, promote, encourage, subsidize, or facilitate diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility policies, principles, or practices, gender ideology, and the so-called transition of a child under 19 years of age from one sex to another. So in other words, this new proposed rule is going after DEI, but it's also specifically going after transgender people, and I'm going to tell you how they're doing that, okay? So first, grants to entities, to states, they cover virtually all kinds of state funding. Funding for state and local governments, fire departments, police departments, library systems, they get federal grants. Colleges and universities get federal grants. Healthcare, hospitals, they get federal funding. They Medicare and Medicaid, they get dollars from Medicare and Medicaid for treatment. Nonprofits, I've talked about libraries, and specifically also schools, K through 12. Thus, any organization or group that receives funding will need to certify several things. First, that the money that they receive from the federal government will not be used for anything related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So say goodbye to all programs or awards that are aimed at righting historical wrongs for marginalized groups, like scholarships for minority students. Those are going to go out the window. Okay. More importantly, for the transgender community, the grant recipient, and then it also talked, if you heard what I said, because it talked about the federal awards and sub-awards. So that would mean if one large organization gets federal dollars, and then that organization in turn distributes that money, those are sub-awards, that none of those groups, okay, they have to certify that they do not endorse or support, quote, theories or ideology that deny the biological reality of sex or the sex binary in humans, or endorse or advocate for the notion that sex is a chosen or mutable characteristic. That's a quote out of this proposed rule. Okay, just about anything, by the way, that has the letters LGBTQ plus would be covered by this, unless they took the T out of the alphabet, as the Trump administration did at the Stonewall Memorial, at the Stonewall National Memorial in New York City. Court later ordered them to put the T back in, but they removed all this. They changed all the signage, and it was just LGB. That's all they had, okay, for the sign. They took the Q's out as well. And then the court ordered them to put the letters back. All right, but just about anything that's LGBTQ plus related. So that, in theory, means libraries that contain books by authors or about transgender characters. So Ellie Krug's books, right, which are in a number of libraries, trust me, in theory, those books have to be removed. We're talking schools, colleges, universities, public schools can't talk about transgender people in history. Policies that nonprofits or any entity that gets federal dollars can't have any kind of policy around recognizing transgender people transitioning on the job or providing gender-affirming care for adults or children. Trans students in all schools, like we're talking every school, college, university in the country, would not be able to use their pronouns or their chosen name that aligns with their gender identity, because if the schools did that, that is affirming trans identities, okay, and the schools would be at risk of losing their funding. Any medical provider in a red or blue state that treats transgender children or adults, or a therapist that does that, where federal dollars are involved in some way for that organization. The federal dollars don't necessarily have to be used for the medical care or for the therapy. As long as the organization gets federal dollars to just do something, the whole organization has to erase transgender people from what its work is. But it's really, really worse than that. Because before an organization can get certified, before they can get the money, they must go through a thing called a pre-issuance review, conducted by a political appointee who would be looking to see if the organization supports trans people in any way. And we're going to have to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about this important issue for more, because it's so incredibly important. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, on The Illegal Trans Woman, bringing you bad news. Don't worry, there's a little good news, but boy, this is horrible. We'll be back in a sec.